Hello, everyone. Today I have something special for you. Today I have a special guest who is also my business mentor. And I need to say, I have always had this idea of bringing examples of women who live the life of their dreams. And I believe you are one of them. You live what you love, you live your destiny, I would say. For those who don't know you, I invited Sigrun, and she's a lifestyle entrepreneur, business strategist, and international speaker. She comes originally from Iceland, and she's on a mission to accelerate gender equality through female entrepreneurship. She is the leading business mentor for female online entrepreneurs in Europe, TEDx speaker, and host of the Sigrun Show podcast. Originally, she comes from Reykjavik in Iceland, but she has spent more than half her life outside her home country in Germany, United Kingdom, and Switzerland. Since she was a young girl, she has always been drawn to leadership roles. So, despite having zero business background nor the education, she made a life-changing phone call and asked to become the CEO of a software company shortly after finishing her master's degree in architecture. And she got the job. 10 years, another 3 master's degrees, and several CEO roles later, Sigrun found herself in Switzerland with her newfound love, but sick and unemployable. Her dream was to be location independent, so she could split her time between Iceland and Switzerland, travel the world, and take care of her health. So in 2014, Sigrun started her online business and quickly built a multiple 7-figure coaching business. With a membership, coaching programs, and masterminds, she helps women from all over the world start, build, and scale their online business to 7 and 6 figures. So this is a little introduction of you, and we will be talking maybe a little bit about business, but I would like to make the direction of our interview so that we bring inspiration and energy and I would say like a positive role model for other women who are also on their path to live their dreams. And I think this interview could be a little empowerment and inspiration to show what is possible. Is there anything you would like to say in the beginning before I will start to ask you?
Just thank you for having me. Nice to be here. I'm Sigrun, and I am excited to share. I love to inspire other women to think bigger, and take action.
I know. So, well, one of the questions I want to talk with you today about the dreams and destiny and goals and success. But before we dive into that topic, I would like to ask you more about your relationship and how you combine your career and your relationship. Because I actually come from the background of being a relationship inspirator, motivator, supporter. So the people who watch me, they are very much interested in how do we cultivate a healthy, thriving relationship. And sometimes we have challenges. Yes, for some people the challenges come in forms of kids and having less time. For some people it comes of having too much work and actually maybe being workaholic at times and not really finding time to spend quality time with their partners. So what would you like to share in this area?
This is I love this topic. And actually, I have spoken about it even in my business. I do talk about my relationship, and but it goes back to the time when I was 16, where my parents met when they were 13, and they are now 77.
Wow!
So I have in front of me the best role models in love and life and even business, because they had their own business too. But mostly love. Like, they fell in love when they were 13. They attended each other's confirmation parties. They got together. My mom got pregnant with 16.
Wow.
Had a baby when she was 17. It all turned out well. You know, I'm the second child. I'm not the one they had first. That was my brother. And then they had my sister. But yeah, happily married since they were 18. They got a special permission from the president because you had to be 20. So you can see that I'm already blessed with role models in my life and a very healthy, respectful relationship. I've never seen them argue.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. We can hardly live up to this ourselves. It's almost too good. Yeah, so I did question it as a grown-up, like, do they never argue? And I'm sure, but they go away and you know, they are a united front for their children. So yes, I had these role models. And then I was 16. I had an experience where I discovered my why. I was attending a course on how to learn more about how to make my own clothes. I was very passionate making my own clothes since I was 12 years old. And I attended this 8-week course at a dressmaker's home in the evening. And I was 16 and the women were in their 40s and 50s. Wow. And they were you know, we didn't have much in common except the sewing part, the dressmaking part. So when we had a break, we will always have one break in the evening. And they would talk about their dreams and how they had not made their dreams come true and how it's because they had kids, because they got married, and then, of course, all the other excuses, time and money and skills, as we know. But it really, you know, I was 16 years old. I think it was easy to influence me. And I was maybe a little bit naive about like, hey, I can do anything I want and nothing will stop in my way. And I was brought up in the belief that I can do anything. And I was planning to go to Germany to study architecture, and my parents supported it. And I was just like, you know, okay, 3-4 more years and I'll be off to Germany to study architecture. I was like, of course I will do this. And then I met these women and they're like, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. And I felt like that they had just missed out on life because somehow society expected them to take care of the kids, take care of the husband and the aging parents and who knows what, and put themselves last. And hearing this week after week, it changed me. I became a feminist. I was like, this is not okay. Why? I was frustrated and angry, not necessarily at the women, although I decided not to become one of those women. But I saw that society was like fueling this, allowing them to use these excuses versus a man would say, hey, just go for it. Because some of these things are just in our head. You know, I cannot believe that all these husbands said you can't do this and that. They maybe just assumed it. Same with the kids. We have kindergarten as of 18 months old in Iceland. Like what should stand in your way to follow your dreams? I think some women are just still putting barriers in their head. Now, this was many years ago. I was 16. Unfortunately, the world hasn't changed so much. And not as much as we hoped for. But I took 4 decisions. First of all, I was not going to have children. Now, I was not interested in children before this incident. I've never played with dolls. I never want to babysit. But I did get 2 bonus kids 14 years ago. So I am a stepmom. The second thing was exactly what you said with, you know, the relationship. I decided I would never let a man stop me. Now, this phrase was so important to me because I was thinking, well, the man must have told the women they couldn't do this and that. That's how I perceived it. That's how I understood it. So I decided this sentence, I will never let a man stop me. This is like really engraved in me. And then the third thing was I was going to make my dreams come true. I was not going to be one of these women that regrets something. And the fourth thing, I'll figure out how I can impact gender equality. I didn't want to be a politician, but what can I do? And as a 16-year-old, I didn't realize this, just actually following my dreams makes me a role model for other women. So that's something I figured out much later. And now through my business, I prefer to help women over men. I have a few male clients, but mostly 90 8% women. And I want more women to start businesses. I want more women to think bigger, to have a 6- and 7-figure business, and really that we have a bigger impact on the economy. And when women have more wealth, there is more gender equality. But the thing about stopping, this followed me. So I am in my 3rd relationship, long-term relationship.
Yes.
The first boyfriend, that was from age 16 to 23. And he didn't want to follow me to Germany.
Okay.
And I knew I was going to spend 7 years in Germany. He came for half a year, gave up, went back. And I realized, this is not what I want. I don't want a long distance relationship. I was very young. I wasn't even sure we were the perfect match. But I think that was when he went back to Iceland and I was in Germany. I'm like, that's not the man for me. That's not there. The second relationship was 8 years. He was Austrian, lived in Germany, and he moved with me back to Iceland, which definitely showed determination on his behalf. But it turned out he was a bit of a Jekyll and a Hyde. So probably out of the 8 years we were together, 4 years he was going behind my back and talking to women online and maybe meeting some of them. So that he broke it off finally when I confronted him that he was not behaving. He was frustrated all the time. So this kind of put me, I was single for probably 5 years after these 2 relationships back to back.
Yes.
At the same time, I got my first CEO role. So it was fitting. I could throw myself into work, start a company, turn around the company. And so I was in a special place when we met. I had stopped thinking about relationship for a while. And I had gone into Dale Carnegie. I was, doing personal development for a couple of years, probably 4 years already. And they were always talking about this guy, Tony Robbins. And I was like, who is this guy? I don't know anything about him. I hadn't read his books. I really was clueless. And they were at Dale Carnegie. Yeah, he is the coach, the guru. And I'm like, oh, okay. So where can I see him? I was like, oh, you have to go to London. I was like, okay. So I went to one of his events in London, and I decided I was really going to immerse myself. I'm not going to meet anyone. So normally I was dressed in black suit, white shirt, my hair like this, because I was the boss. I was the CEO of companies. You have to take me seriously. I'm not tall. I'm quite small. So also I had to wear heels, and I'm the boss. And when I went to this event, I went into jeans. I put on a fleece jacket. I didn't wear any makeup. And I was just like trying to really fall into the crowd and hide. And I sit next to my future husband without knowing it. And so we met in a very special place. And we were not trying to date or anything. Actually, he got to know the real person, the raw vulnerability. Like I told him, for instance, that I think all men cheat. I cannot trust men. Why should I go into a new relationship? I was like, rah. Yeah. But by voicing this actually with a man versus a woman, I realized how I was holding myself back. And that was one of the things, of course, that you can do in circumstances at a Tony Robbins seminar is like, what is the limiting belief holding you back?
Yes. Wow.
I picked the relationship one. Out of the business, career, and health, I could have picked many other, but I said that you believe this, that all men are cheaters or all men are bad, that's the one limiting you. And so I scrapped it that day. And I said, there are good men out there. And then I opened up for potential relationships.
Wow. And how long?
Together, 14 years. 14 years. Got married 10 years ago. I moved to Switzerland, but we split our time between Iceland and Switzerland. And the kids are still with us. They're 17 and 18. So actually, during the last 2 years, I spent most of my time in Iceland. And during the pandemic, my husband flew to Iceland, went into quarantine for 5 days just to be with me, stayed 2 weeks, went 2 weeks back, 2 weeks to take care of the kids, back. I think he spent 30 days in quarantine so that we didn't have too many days apart. But he supported my decision to stay. I got very sick a year ago. It was not COVID, it was another virus. And I just said I prefer to stay in Iceland there. And, because I was going to hospitals and things like that. Yeah. Yes. But, so yes, we've been together 14 years, and he is my biggest supporter and my toughest critic.
Wow. So you created your business and you were already married, right? So while you were with this guy.
No, I created the business 9 years ago. Yes. So yes, we were married. You're correct. Yes.
Yes. So your relationship, your marriage is longer than your business.
Yeah.
Would you say something about the transition when you stopped being employed and you started your own business? How was the atmosphere in your relationship about this? Like, I don't know, he was all in supporting you, I imagine, or your daily rhythm changed, right? Because you didn't go to work anymore, you worked from home, so it's a different lifestyle.
Yeah. So I had actually had a job before where I worked from home, and he could sometimes work from home. He was working for a big company, and they actually allowed him to, like, 1 day a week or have it, like, he would sometimes just start the day at home and then go to work. So we both had a little bit of flexibility before I started. But what I would say is changed is the financial part, because when I decided to start my own business, there's no income in the beginning. And I had to sit down with my husband and discuss, like, how are we going to deal with this? Are you going to support me financially? Now, we both believe that when people get together, even if they're not married, we throw our finances together. I've always done that, and I wouldn't want it any other way. But still, it's a big decision when one partner, whether it's the man or the woman, or, it can also be a relationship where there's 2 women and 2 men. But when one of them says, I want to start a business, it affects the other person because there's less money around in total. And so there's this period of where you have to build it up. So I did have make an agreement with my husband, like, okay, here's what I think I need, and I hope that, I don't know, after 6 months or whatever, and could be earlier, I will have replaced my income. And so we had that conversation, and he was very supportive. I remember, though, because I went from being a CEO and calling myself a lifestyle entrepreneur, or calling my business a lifestyle business, that there was, like, from his friends, like, what is your wife doing? She's just sitting at home, and what, because it took a few years until they actually saw, oh, this is a real business. He's making $1 million a year and multiple millions. But in the beginning, there is nothing to see and hear, and people think you're just wasting your time. And so I think sometimes he was, like, getting that pressure from friends, but I think he stood his ground. So yeah, I think financially it was important to have that conversation. And it's tricky in the beginning when you're relying on support, because I've always been independent, financially independent, and so these months, it's the only time in my life where I felt I had to rely on my husband, like, and so that was tricky for me personally, because I wasn't used to it. But we got over that time. And so I would say the next part was, I had been running a business for 3 years, and he was like, wow, this is going so well. I think my revenue in my 3rd year was like $360,000. And he's like, wow, I can stop working, he said. And I was like, no. I was like, no, you cannot stop working. And I was really kind of, what is he thinking? What is he thinking? What is he saying? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Well, sometimes you say things and they just come true. He had been working 10 years for the company, and not long after he said this to me, he actually lost his job.
Wow.
Yeah. And then he was like, I think because he had been working there so long, he actually got like a 9-month package. Yeah. And so he really was getting money for, or almost a year. And then in the beginning, he just was playing golf and just enjoying his life. You know, he's been working since he was 16. Yes. And so he just enjoyed this freedom. And, you know, he was getting paid. So why not? And I was happy for him, because I know I've had periods where I didn't work in between jobs, and I think people should enjoy it. But there came a point where he was like, do I need to look for a job? I don't think so. And I was like, what? So he started to help out in the business. And actually what he did first was he became my executive assistant. He said, your email is a mess. And I'm like, what? So many unread emails, filled inbox, calendar, a mess. And he stepped into that role of, because he had always had executive assistants in his whole career. So he knew exactly how they are when they have a good one. I had never had, even when I was a CEO, I never had an executive assistant. So he stepped into this role of supporting me. And then we had some mess in our bookkeeping. And I said, can you help the bookkeeper find old receipts? And, you know, we had to redo some of our books. He did that. And then when I started to work with affiliates, turned out that he was great at that, because that was a little bit similar to his role. Like, you're motivating partners to sell on your behalf. So that was pretty much what I did in the corporate world. And now he was doing for me. So he stepped in, and then I started to see, like, oh, maybe he could actually be my right-hand person, like a COO. But he didn't never become that. And so actually I had to fire him after 4 years.
And so how did the business roles you had, I mean, you both had, how did it affect your relationship, your marriage, your private relationship?
So I think in the business, I really always wanted to tell him that, like, this is my business. Even if you step into it, it's not your business. And sometimes people can actually do it together, and it feels like an equal partnership. But I have this vision, and it's also, I want to accelerate gender equality. I'm focusing on women. It's not his mission. It's not his vision, you know. And so, and we are like, both wanted to be right, you know, and he had to accept that if he is helping me out, he's not the CEO, he's not the decision maker. And he did it for a while, but he also felt like, and so he actually kind of gave me permission to fire him. He said, you know, this is probably not working out as much. So he does still help me a lot, actually, but in a very different role. I have no executive assistant. And I've had an executive assistant now for 3 years or so. And at the end of the day, I also hired a COO. Even though I wanted him to be it, he never fully grabbed the role. It's like having any employee on your team. You give them a responsibility, and then they're like, not really doing what you hoped they did, and they don't grab the role with both hands. So it's about you have a great person, but they're not in the right seat. So you have to put them in a different seat, or let them go if you don't have a seat for them. And so he was doing a lot of things very well, but I really needed someone to be we call it an integrator, basically a person that runs the business so that I can focus on content and do interviews like this one. So that was like the person I was looking for, someone who can run the day-to-day business. I trust the person 100%. They can actually lead the team and lead the projects. And he wasn't that person. He didn't want to be that person. I have found a wonderful person, and she's doing her job really well. What he does today is manages the cash. It is quite complicated because we live in Switzerland with Swiss franc. We charge in dollars. We also allow people to pay in other currencies. We split our time between Iceland and Switzerland. I think overall we have to have 15 or 20 bank accounts because you need credit cards, different currencies. You have Wise and Revolut and all this stuff. And then you want to maybe run Facebook ads. And now you need to take the money from different accounts and put them into, so that Facebook, when they charge you on your credit card, that there's actually money there. And he actually likes this role. It doesn't take him too much time, but it's a very important role. Like if he wouldn't do it, suddenly Facebook would try to charge me for something and there's no money in the account because it's in a wrong account. So paying people, but what I found most, how he supports me the most, is that I have to take so many decisions throughout the day in my job. I do not want to take decisions about the rest of my life. So he will suggest where to go for dinner, what to have for dinner. He doesn't cook, but he will suggest, and he will go shopping. And so even if I maybe cook at the end of the day, he's gone shopping. He's actually shopping right now, I think. So I call him now CEO of life.
Okay, that's important. That's so important. Yeah. And maybe we have a few minutes left, but what is your typical daily routine? You are traveling and it differs at time, but what is your typical daily routine?
If I want to say, because I know you're mostly interested in relationship, we are not always together, my husband and I. I go to Iceland and he maybe comes a week later or doesn't go at all, and I'm there for 2 weeks and then I come back. We call each other every single day, at least once, if not twice, if we are in the same time zone. If we are not in the same time zone, that could be challenging. And he sends me a daily SMS since 14 years.
Wow.
Because at a Tony Robbins event, not the one we met at, but the next one we went to, there was a guy on stage who said, he met this woman and he fell in love and he was asking her, what do you want? They were not together yet. So he took a list and wrote down, what do you want? And she said, I want a daily note. And I shivered. I was like, oh, I want that too. And from that day on, he did it.
Wow.
Wow. And if we're not together, so the daily note comes no matter where I am in the world. If I'm home, I also get the daily note. But if we're not together, he will send me a video message in the evening when he goes to bed, because he knows that I'm still struggling with trust. I want to know that he's going to sleep in his own bed and where he is. So he sends me a video message that he cannot, and that really, and we have Find My Friends with each other. So we always know where we are. And it's not to spy on each other and there's no distrust. It actually helps me with my trust issue because I was betrayed so badly in my last relationship. Yes. He's helping me heal that.
That's beautiful. And I know it does take time. It really does take time to have the trust back, and you can't really regulate it, right? So that's beautiful. You should make a collection of his, messages. Maybe one day you will publish this type of book, different than business book.
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
Beautiful. Okay, I see our time is up, right? Well, do you have any final words?
I think it's so important for women to find the right partner. I think actually in gender equality studies, they have found that this is probably the biggest decision you take, whether you're actually going to live an equal life or not, is who you partner with.
Mm.
So it's finding out that this partner is on the same wavelength. You know, my husband doesn't really describe himself as a feminist, but he is. A lot of women, a lot of men struggle with the word feminist, but is being equals on the same level and respecting each other's wishes and dreams and realizing that we're individuals with own dreams, but also there has to be enough that keeps you together.
Yes, yes. Well, I had a few more questions for you, but I'm not sure if you have some extra.
Oh, I have time. Yes, we do.
Good. So, well, then the next question will be like, what is your typical, let's say, work and life daily routine apart from your partner, apart from the partnership? What is it you typically do during the day? How do you start your day and so on?
I don't really have a morning routine. I am a bee person. So I like to, whenever I go to bed, it doesn't matter. I like to actually sleep as long as I can. So if I have a meeting at 9 o'clock, I will wake up at 8. So that doesn't leave much room except for shower, quick breakfast, and just sitting at my desk. But I do have the daily routine of fitness because, you know, I had my issues with neck and pain many years ago. And so I have a personal fitness trainer and it's in the calendar and I just click on Zoom and we do fitness in the middle of the day. So I don't have time to necessarily change into other clothes. He knows it's in between meetings. So we do things that are more posture. You know, I really focus on making sure that I have a straight back. Yes. And don't get pain again. Yes. So I have that in. Also, I have in a daily walk. Now, I don't always do it, but it is in my calendar, the daily walk. And yes, I did go today and I did go yesterday with my husband. It always helps if you have someone with you. We don't have a dog, so my husband and I, we go together, and that's great. So that's the daily routine. And then because the boys are now 17 and 18 and they're not so into us, we also are going a lot more out because I feel when we go out, we almost have more quality time talking versus if you're at home. I know you can also do it at home, but yeah, we go out a lot for dinner. We both don't like cooking so much, so we go really out a lot. And sometimes we call it a date night and sometimes not. But all my days are different. I would say the routine I've had since the very beginning of my business is I do coaching on Tuesdays, internal meetings on Mondays. Wednesdays, I've been doing content like my podcast and things. Thursdays and Fridays have been free. They sometimes get filled up with meetings, but then these are meetings based on projects I'm doing or something to move something forward, but they're normally blocked. And this has worked really well for me. And I concentrate, for instance, all coaching calls on Tuesdays. And that just gives me this rhythm of like, I go from coaching to coaching and I'm in the space of coaching. And I love to kick off the week on Mondays with different internal meetings we need to have. Now, of course, it's great that I have a COO. She does most of the meetings. And yeah, when I go into launch, this is all messed up and then everything flips over. But I try to plan the week so I have a very focused day each day.
Oh, I have a business question for you. How did you actually evolve in, building up the team and having the team? Because in the beginning, you do everything on your own, right? You just do all the work, and gradually you have more people helping you. And then actually you need to give it a structure because the more helpers you have, the more structure you need. What would you say about this journey and what helped you to evolve from doing it all on your own to actually having a beautiful team who is now run mostly by a different person than you, right?
Yes. Well, I was a CEO before for 10 years. So I had an idea how a team can look like when a company reaches a certain size. I also knew that I didn't want a really big team. I used to run companies that were relatively small. The biggest one I ran was 74 employees. And I thought, I think 20 people max, maybe 10. Between 10 and 20 is my sweet spot. I don't want more people. I want to know each person personally and have uncomplicated, not much hierarchy, and be able to message everyone on Slack, or they can message me. So that after a certain size, you cannot allow that to happen. You need gatekeepers. So in the beginning, it was me alone. I did start to hire virtual assistants pretty quickly. They would set up my webinars. I did weekly webinars, and we didn't have these tools that we use today where you can just click a button and go live. It was quite complicated. And so I had like detailed instructions, and she just followed them, and she would send out MailChimp newsletters and all that stuff. And in my second year, I found a really good person that stayed with me 6.5 years. And I think that was really, really helpful. She came in with more experience. She was actually just hired as a tech VA. It turned out she had actually done content and social media before in a bigger company. So we were kind of working in tandem. But there comes a time where I had to break that up, that relationship. And it's really, it's probably one of the hardest things I had to do. It was really like a real relationship. Like I was in a way heartbroken afterwards. I don't know exactly how she feels, because I'm like, I don't want to be drawn back into it, you know? But, you know, there was just a time where, you know, you build this business together. It's my business, not hers. And there was this, like, she had a much harder time delegating than me. And I wanted to start to break up the company into like teams, you know, marketing team and programs teams, and some takes care of operations. And that was harder for her than me. And so we had to split. And I do think one of the reasons my energy has been low for several months, or was low specifically in the beginning of the year, was this. It was like a breakup. It was like a love breakup. And so it's important that you don't see your team members, even if they're dear to your heart, that if you see it's starting to be this, like, I was holding on to her because I cared about her, versus she wasn't the right for the company anymore. That's a dangerous spot that I think a lot of us can get into, because especially women, we like to start to see our team members as friends. And so this was really hard for me. But before she even left, I had actually put up the structure. So that was really good when I took the step. And what helped me was I created an org chart of an 8-figure business. I don't have an 8-figure business yet. And I had empty boxes. And then when I saw people have potential, I started to fill up the boxes.
Wow.
And that's how I was able to, I hired someone to run the Momentum program. And then she did such a great job. And I said, you are my programs director. And I'm like, wow, this is going faster than I thought. It was just because I created a visionary org chart. And I started to put people, and I say, oh, she's so good, she should go here. Well, she went from programs director to COO. I started to see the potential. But I liked it, and I think she did too, is this stepping up versus hiring someone straight into the most important roles. The team also likes it better. So I have found it's better to hire people in lower and grow them into the team, because then they're more accepted. And actually there was this whole wave of support and hooray, great, when my CEO got hired this year, because she came up, you know, org chart.
Yeah,
so
it's strange to have someone coming from the outside and then bossing around everyone, right? It's not possible.
I tried that last year. That did not go well. I had to let the person go after 4 years. So I made my mistakes too. But hiring people into it doesn't work so well. Sometimes you have to, because there's no one to go up. But the structure that I find works well is marketing and sales and programs. Just these two, really. And then you have some supporting roles. It is important that someone is in charge of that all the programs run smoothly. And you can have a program manager for each. each program. Sometimes that makes sense, sometimes not. Sometimes it can be one person taking care of it all. We have, with our Sampa Kickstart program, where you create your first or next online course, we have a head coach, and she is responsible that the program runs. She also runs the coaching call, but this could be two different people. You could have one person responsible for the program and another one doing the coaching calls. But it helps if it's the same person, because then you have less admin. And then, so I really liked the doing this, you know, like it's not like a very strict hierarchy, and people help also, you know, over the teams. But marketing and sales and programs, I found that to be a very good way. So at the end of the day, I didn't copy what I had in a business before. I just found like, okay, we are attracting clients, and then we have to execute our programs. And that is a beautiful way for this size of a business. I don't want it to be too big. And so, yeah, that's a way that I found to do it.
I loved also how you explained about the boxes. Basically, you created the vision of someone being there. And do you have any advice for women who do not know their dreams yet? They're like, okay, I'm not living what I'm supposed to be living. I feel that's not it. But I don't know what is this I should be doing. So I need to say I meet many women who are kind of like, yeah, the way I'm living and what I'm doing work-wise, it's not it. But how do I find it? What would you say?
Well, I was trying to find out what should be my business idea. So I think many of these exercises help. And one of them is to look back at your childhood stories. What did you want to do as a child? Sometimes there is some indication there. Not always, but sometimes it could be. So I wrote down all my childhood stories when I was doing this, discovering myself, like, what do I really want? And then, you know, I discovered really my why. It came to me like, wow, I had this why with me my whole life. I've taken a lot of decisions. I've ended relationship. I've gone into new relationship. And I've decided to follow my dreams because of decisions I took 16-year-old. So maybe there's a defining moment in your life where you actually kind of forgot about, and it comes back to you when you think about what are your defining moments. You can actually write a timeline. What are the defining moments in your life? It could have been a divorce, could have been someone dying. It could also have been you just starting a new job, or having a sudden flash of like, hey, this is what I want. And so you could do all of that. But sometimes the easiest way to figure out what you want is just to close your eyes and imagine yourself in a happy place. Where is this happy place? Where are you? Who are you with? What are you feeling? How's the weather? See the happy place. And then you start to ask yourself, oh, what did I do the last 10 years? What have I achieved? What do I own? What do I not own? What did I give away or sell? And it's like a guided meditation. And suddenly people have visions of something that they had never seen before. And you can do this again and again. And sometimes it just gets clearer and clearer. And typically, it doesn't change so much. And so I think it's harder to do this on your own, but it's easy to find this. There are on the internet. I do this from time to time with my clients. Probably going to do it again in January. Yeah, so this vision exercise, and I came across a new one recently, which I absolutely love. It's the concept of being your future self now. And so it's what I realized. I've done this exercise with my clients. First, you imagine 6 months from now. What do you want to have achieved? Like if you had to create a YouTube video that goes live after 6 months, what will you say to the audience? Like, you know, what you have done. And 6 months, I don't see people making so much shifts. Then it's 12 months. 5 years, and 10 years. And when they do the 10 years, they start to imagine things. And then I think to myself, because I know how our brain works, the 10-year things will actually happen in 1 year.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It was just the exercise made you think bigger and bigger and bigger. Imagine, let's say in 6 months, oh, I'm going to live in a nice little house. And then if that's important to you, maybe the house is bigger in the, 5 year. And maybe, oh, I actually have 2 houses. I live in 2 places. And I'm like, well, why not now?
Mm-hmm.
What's holding you back of doing it now? And when people have to imagine into the future, this is actually what Tony Robbins does at his event. If there's something holding you back, I come back to the limiting belief we started off. So it's like a round circle in our talk. Imagine, now what's holding you back. Imagine 6 months and you haven't done anything about it. Imagine 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, and people start to cry. They scream of pain. And it's once you can imagine that pain, let's say staying in a bad relationship, or not quitting the job that's draining you, or not starting the business that you wanted to start, or not finding the love of your life, you can act on it today. You don't need that. You don't need those to happen. So you can do these exercises in a positive manner. You can also do it to actually make sure you take action on something that's bothering you and holding you back.
And what is your 10-year vision? Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Actually, I did an exercise in 2006. I was doing MBA at London Business School, and I thought it was interesting. They made us do vision exercises. And we were supposed to write an obituary. So basically, I was supposed to be dead, and someone was writing about me. And I thought that's so negative. So I wrote as if I was 90 years old, and it was my adopted daughter that would be speaking to me and the audience about me. And I wrote that. I really need to find it because it gives me a little bit goosebumps to think about it now. And in that vision, I saw myself as a speaker and an author who goes into schools, business schools, and inspires women to live the life of their dreams, mainly through building a business.
Yeah, I have goosebumps too.
We have goosebumps, both of us now. I don't think this vision has changed.
Yes.
I can see this business growing that I have today, but I know I see myself being in schools and academia to actually just getting the inspiration out there, because online business is just one vehicle. It's not it, it's just the way that it's easy for us to build a business. I think it's one of the easiest way for women to build a business. But gender equality is such a big topic. There is so much to tackle. And one of my dreams is to write a book like Good to Great. I don't know if you know the book, Good to Great. It's called a landmark book. A landmark book is one that's built on research. And also when it was published, people like, wow, these insights are so great. And it impacted a lot of leaders. And I remember when I read it, I was like, wow, this is so inspiring. My hope is to one day write a book on recipe for gender equality that would have that impact.
Wow, that's beautiful. I loved it. And you are such an example of that. And I mean, it's so strong, right? Because when you live it, you are teaching it. And I can completely relate to your idea to bringing this to schools. The online business goes to people who choose it, right?
Yes.
But we need to get this into the system, and
Yes.
then it has so much more impact that it's part of daily education. And
yeah.
I can relate to this completely.
Yeah.
Also with my area of relationships and intimacy, and there are so
There's so
many.
much. Yeah. There's so
It
much
needs,
we can do at a such early stage so that people don't get messed up.
it's true. It's true. Yes. So I completely can relate to your vision, bringing this to everyone.
Yeah.
So I thank you so much for sharing this with us today and empowering women to live their dreams and really stand in their power and to finding that power. And I do see that for women it's not so easy, even though I have I grew up with my mother. She was just the only mother. I didn't grow up with my father. So I did have a role model of mother who does it all, right? So
That's dangerous, because then you probably feel you need to do it all. And I think that's could be our biggest obstacle for women, is not get help, not ask for help.
Yes.
But I think every woman can be a role model. You know, it could start with easy things that are just in regular life. It's like standing up for something and you know, showing other women that we can do it. I think each one of us plays a role in that. You don't have to be a CEO. You doesn't have to have a big business. It's just that every opportunity you have, can you be a role model for other women and show girls and younger women that they can do it too?
This is what I see in women, that sometimes they find their power when they are aware, like, what example am I giving to my daughter? And
Yes.
they wouldn't fight for themselves, but once they get clear, oh, this is what I'm actually teaching her, and I don't want her to live the same shit I did.
Exactly.
And this can be really helpful to be aware, oh, what kind of example am I living right now?
Yeah. And that's it. We're all role models, and it could be simple things at our home. When we are out and about with other people, it could be very simple things. We have to show other women what's possible, and girls growing up too.
Thank you. Well, this is
Thank
beautiful
you.
words. Enjoy the rest of your evening, maybe cooking what your husband is doing.
I think I have heard that somebody's cooking, so it's not me tonight.
Great.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. A true pleasure. Bye-bye. Bye.